Edge Radio Australia, it is time for Soulbirth, and I have the absolute legend beside me, okay, the wonderful Suzanne,
Well,
with her
thank you.
baby.
My
She's
baby.
with
Got
her
my
baby.
baby again today.
Yes. You like to have I don't know, you make this very much like an instructional video. I like that.
Right.
It's very cool
well, you got
indeed.
the video, you may as well.
You may as
right?
well, exactly,
And my
yeah.
baby likes to come with me, don't you? It's
That's right.
attachment parenting here.
With your bungee jumping baby, yes, got it all going.
Exactly.
So why in the world have you brought, props today?
Well, it's props as my baby, but
Yeah.
I like to have my baby here. So especially if we're talking about a subject that, can benefit from having my baby and her attachments.
I'm going to make you look. Eventually, I'm going to wear you down, and you'll say "baby." Okay, I'm going to make.
I'm going there.
I will work on you until you actually get there. So, what is today's show about?
Well, Aaron, today we're going to be talking about the golden hour.
The golden hour.
And I'm not talking about happy hour or 1 o'clock.
Okay, I do like them at 1 o'clock. Okay, yep.
No, today we're talking about that sacred hour after the birth.
Okay.
That beautiful time.
It's full on, isn't it?
Like it is.
There's a lot.
Full on, but that's the pause. We were talking about the pause, the sacred pause.
Yeah.
This is the sacred pause after birth.
Okay. So, what? We give it an hour, and then we just resume sort of normal.
No, at least an hour. At
least an hour.
This is it's so important that most people aren't aware of this. That that hour after birth is really, really important for the bonding.
I thoroughly agree with you on that one. Yeah.
And there's so much that happens in that hour, not just bonding, but there's so much more which we'll talk
cool.
about.
Well, let's delve in.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what's your experience of this?
Varied, very varied. So in my experience, there's whether it's your first time, it feels unbelievably, I know, surreal is probably the best way to describe it. It's not a place you've ever been. You've got a bonding between yourself and your child, and your, in my case, wife, all going on at the same time, which was just very euphoric. And certainly, as I say, like becoming a dad for the first time. I mean, I always laugh about this, but my son was born in the middle of the night, my firstborn, and anyway, after the hour and all of that, I'm still on this ridiculous high. And I went down to the local McDonald's, and as it opened,
good healthy food.
Yeah, well, it's the only place open at I got there at like about 10 to 6 in the morning.
Right.
And why I mentioned that is because I went in there and I just told every staff member, I've just become a dad. I've just become, and it looked like a scene from It's a Wonderful Life,
Yeah.
And look, I had my McMuffin and I got on with, and my coffee, obviously, and I got on with things. But I was still, and that was probably, you say about the hour, that was probably about 2.5 hours later, and I was buzzing, absolutely buzzing.
Still riding on a high. Feel like you ride on a high for a day or two afterwards.
Easily.
I know, it's amazing. But that, to me, like the most sacred of times is that, and it's been documented as the sacred hour after birth, because so much happens in that. And it's amazing how quickly that first hour goes.
I agree with you on that.
For me, like from a midwife perspective and as a mother, having my own babies as well, that, that time, you're just in this like beautiful bubble where you just meeting your baby, like you've been carrying this baby inside for all this time.
What a great point.
Yeah, and then you finally meet them.
And that's exactly right. I mean, you've been talking to this baby for a long, long time. The kicks and the bumps, and every time feeling the belly, and I'm talking from my perspective, obviously. But it's and then you can physically see this person for the first time. It's huge.
It's beautiful. So when they actually emerge, and you see each other, and it's just like, oh my God, and to just the belief that you birthed this baby, you just can't believe it, and then meeting them and then meeting you when your eyes connect, like that is the most special time. To me, there is nothing in this world that can actually come close to that moment.
That's what I think, and I think you're onto something there. It's an unbelievable moment. The only thing that I found, as I say, becoming a first-time dad, is I wasn't warned about basically the physicality of it. I know that sounds stupid, but I wasn't warned what my son would look like. No. Okay.
So the colour and everything.
Yeah, the colour and other sort of features of him that kind of didn't make sense. And he, like everybody goes, oh, they're so beautiful. They're so beautiful. He was just a hairy ape. He was just a hairy ape, all covered in stuff. And
vernix. The stuff is vernix.
Vernix.
All that white creamy stuff that's all over them, covered. When they come out.
So beautiful. I was going to use the technical term.
What's that?
Gauze. You're covered in gauze. So no. It was, and I tease him. Well, don't tease him about it, but I tease about the fact that he just looked so like he looked like he'd been to war. Yeah, he came out there and away we went. But all jokes aside, it was unbelievably beautiful moment. And and it changed me as a human being. Oh, like that.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine, or I try to imagine what it's like for a mum, because obviously you've got the physical element of carrying for 9 months. Just huge.
I know. And what you said too about not being prepared for how they look, that's a common thing as well, because I don't know, for some reason, it's not taught. Well, often some classes, when you go to antenatal classes, if you do, some people might, tell you what to expect. But, most people think that the baby's going to come out nice and pink and, all their head nice and shaped, well-shaped, and going to be all pink and dry. It's like, well, that doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't.
When
no
they
way.
first come out, they are usually a bit blue because they haven't oxygenated fully yet. They just come out and they're taking their first breath, and it takes a few moments before their system actually kicks in and they actually get, all the oxygen flowing around their body and because they have this transition time, transitioning to physical life,
right?
Which is why it's important not to clamp and cut the cord, which we'll go more into depth in a minute about that, because it's really important while they're getting all the oxygen and nutrients through the cord, that's helping them to establish, or to stay, okay, until their own system kicks in.
Okay.
Because when they take their first breath, their lungs expand, and then all their circulation system actually changes. There's a physiological change.
I've never understood that. Okay, and you're the one to ask on this one. Okay, so you've been living in effectively water. Okay, I know it's got other terms.
Amphibian.
There we go. That stuff. Okay, goose too. Right, you've been living in that for 9 months.
Swimming around in amniotic
Yeah, be swimming
fluid.
around exactly that. And then all of a sudden you've got all this oxygen going on. This is a massive change.
I know, because as we talked about a few weeks ago when we talked about the placenta,
yep,
that's providing all the that's the exchange that's connected to the mother's uterus, and that's providing through the cords all the oxygen and nutrients the baby needs while it's in utero. So it's not actually breathing through the lungs as such, because it's getting all its oxygen through the cord. And the cord is composed of, like you've seen it before, it's really gristly, kind of white, material. And then there's one thick vein going through there and 2 arteries. And so the one vein carries all the oxygenated blood. So it's full of oxygen.
So that's really super red.
That's the bluish one.
That's the bluish one? Okay.
Yes, but it's a big thick one. Goes through there, and then there's 2 arteries which actually come through. They're smaller, and they take all the waste away, and the deoxygenated blood.
Jeez, you know what? It's amazing.
System.
Isn't it?
I know, so it kind of acts like our kidneys, if you like, in a way, but it kind of goes through. And then once the baby is breathing okay and has actually transitioned into physical life, which is in this golden hour, then once they've got everything working and they don't need the cord anymore, then it will stop pulsating.
Right.
So it will go completely white.
Okay.
And that's when you know that the baby's transitioned.
Okay.
Yeah, so you
I didn't know that.
don't clamp and cut the cord before that happens. You shouldn't anyway. So
then why, when the baby comes out, because I've seen this, firsthand, where they want to clamp that cord so fast.
And that's the protocol in the hospital system, is because
so fast.
Yeah, because it all comes down to time.
Okay.
Get them in, get them out, kind of.
Yeah,
thing.
but how much time? Okay, do you need before the cord changes colour and does its thing?
Well, that only takes a few moments. Right. So because as a midwife, you sit there and you actually watch, and you can actually feel the baby's heart rate through the cord. So if you're not sure how they are, you just reach down and feel the cord.
Wow.
And if that's pulsating, you can count the heartbeat through the cord, and you're always feeling for when it stops pulsating. If you're in the hospital system and their protocol is, but everybody has a choice. You can actually elect not to have the cord clamped and cut. But most people don't know that you have that choice either. So you can actually ask and say, I want delayed cord clamping, because there's so much happens in that. And to me, you should never clamp and cut it until it's finished at least, because you're robbing the baby of all its nutrients and oxygen, and you're actually stopping it from transitioning fully.
Okay.
So because when they clamp and cut it, the reason they do that is because they give the mum an oxytocin injection. So if you probably sometimes you don't even know they've given it, because it's very quick. It's in the thigh. As soon as the baby is sort of born,
I remember that. Yeah.
Give that, because what that does is helps to speed up. It's just speeding the process up. It's to stop. It's supposedly to prevent postnatal hemorrhage.
Right.
But you're not going to hemorrhage anyway until the placenta is released. So why give it before the placenta's released? So
Jeez,
to me,
I tell you right now,
if you're going to have it on the side, just to keep it there just in case there's a hemorrhage. But most times, physiological birth, if left undisturbed, you don't have a hemorrhage. So
why is
should you
there
have
such
this stuff?
a desire? And I know the answer to this, but still, there's such a desire to expedite a natural process and actually interfere with a
Exactly.
natural process.
I know.
This is not new. We've been doing it a while,
I
right?
know, but it's all about fast,
Just
get things happening fast because, the bed, needs for beds and move people along, but it's wrong because it's, this is about women and it's about babies and it's about birth being sacred. So why are we rushing this event? Should be held. I mean, this
money,
is what
money, right? That's what it comes down to.
I know, but this is my passion, is about slowing birth down. We need to slow it down and allow it the space that it needs to unfold, with
actually enjoy it, actually have the full experience of it.
Yeah, and just allow nature to take its course and allow the baby to be born when it's ready, not rushing things along. Yeah.
Do you know what's funny? Excuse me.
What's that? So funny.
I keep looking down at the baby. I keep looking at the baby.
See,
it's like we've got a third person on the couch.
we have.
We have. We have.
It's very real.
Yeah.
Hello.
Well, it's just not overly talkative, but apart from that.
Hello, Aaron.
This just got very weird. It's I mean, that's honestly, you bring when you bring the baby in, such a great thing. Like when you showed me, coming through the pelvis. These are things that you don't really understand until it's put in front of you and you're shown properly.
Yeah, which is the beauty of being able to see. When we're talking about the cord, because the cord can be any length too. It can be like roughly about this as average, but you can get short cords.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and you can get really long cords. Some babies have super long cords that are quite skinny, but the problem with the long cords is they quite often get tangled up in them.
Oh, right. Okay.
So babies, like I've had been at a birth with a baby, and it's not uncommon, where, they've had the cord raveled around them 6 times. But, quite often they need to have sometimes like this, if the baby can't come through the pelvis because, or, can't be born out because it's cord around the neck several times. It's okay if it's just once because you can kind of loop it over their head.
Yep.
But sometimes it's looped around their body as well because they've been doing somersaults inside. So sometimes the only way you can get them to actually come out is to clamp and cut the cord and unravel it to allow them out. So,
Now, do you do that as a midwife or is that a doctor thing?
That's midwife. Yeah.
Oh, well.
Midwife.
There you go.
Whoever's, there holding space for the birth. But it's best if you can to just leave it. And because sometimes too, the baby can actually come out with it all raveled around them. It depends on how tightly or loosely it's raveled. But, if you've got the cord there wrapped around it like this, like a handbag, you're not going to be able to unravel that and it's going to stop it coming out.
Of course.
Yeah. So, but that's rare. It doesn't happen that often that you have it around that many times.
I said, childbirth is a very, very normal thing. And I think that the industry likes to make it sound as complicated as possible because, obviously, more money, that's how industries work, like that. Cash. And another thing I'll just mention too, a lot of people will obviously be listening to this right now on the radio, or you might listen to the replay on Sunday, which we replay this show at what time?
At 11 o'clock in the morning, Australian Western Standard Time.
Australian, very important to say that, actually.
It is.
Because some people probably watching it in, I don't know, look, America at sort of midnight or whatever. So, that's a great point. Why I mentioned that is, do remember you can jump actually onto, say, our YouTube, for argument's sake, and you can watch this video anytime you like. So whenever we're demonstrating things and we're talking about things that you can physically see, it's a bit better if you can physically see them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
And so the other good thing about this cord is when you allow it to happen naturally and the placenta's still inside mum and the cord's pulsating and you bring the baby up to the chest and you get all that beautiful bonding time. So skin to skin, that's really important for establishing the baby's heart rate.
Completely agree.
And, keeping them warm as well. So body heat.
See, I was thinking about the bonding thing. I'm agreeing because I thought you were going to go down the bonding line.
I'm going there too.
Okay, there you go, see.
Because that's number one importance. But also there's so much involved, from a physiological point of view where, the body actually, or the baby, can maintain its temperature. It actually rests there next to you and it can feel the mother's heartbeat because it's come out of, the uterus where it's been hearing the heartbeat and everything. That's right. And
it wants consistency.
Close to mum. It does. So it wants to come close to mum and have skin-to-skin contact and actually pick up the scent of mum as well, because to establish breastfeeding, they need to be in close proximity, obviously, and it goes by smell as well. So babies, if this is a really interesting one for you, and there's videos to show this if anybody wants to Google YouTube ones about the breast crawl. So if you put a baby straight onto mum's belly and just leave it, allow it to just find its own way to the breast, it may take a while, but they can sniff it out and they actually gradually crawl up and find the breast and latch themselves.
Now, I've seen this, and to me, it was the
You have.
slowest game of hungry hippo I've ever seen, right? Come on. But it is funny, and because their mouths are sort of, they do sort of,
Yeah, they do. All mouthing around trying to find
Yeah,
it.
looking.
They can smell it, but they've got to find it.
Heads going around, it looks like Stevie Wonder. It's just, it's cute as hell, actually.
It is.
But why would you do it? Just out of another bit of curiosity.
No, I think it's been done just to show that it does happen.
Okay,
but
that makes sense.
I'd always put the baby up
Yeah,
closer
make it
anyway
easy for the
because
kid.
you want to see, and you want to touch your baby, and this is the other important thing is that when you've got this time left undisturbed, the mother can touch the baby, and and I'm very big into imprinting as well because the first person to touch the baby, have you ever heard of imprinting?
I have.
So,
Only from you. Not beforehand. No, not before.
But it happens with animals too, where the mother, as soon as their baby, like think of a horse that gives birth and the foal is laying on the ground, and then the horse, the mother will go and start sniffing around and licking it.
Yep.
And so all animals do that. And not that we as humans need to start licking our baby,
No.
but it's all the same about touching. It's touch.
Yeah.
Because have you ever heard that in nature, like if a human interacts or intercepts with that process and they touch the foal before the mother does, quite often the mother then rejects the baby.
I've seen that actually, not with horses, but actually with dogs.
Yeah.
Dogs have actually rejected puppies because they've been touched by somebody else.
Exactly.
And
kittens,
so I get that.
So that happens in the natural world with animals. So why would
we're
that be
just
any different
animals
with
ourselves,
humans?
right?
Yeah. So I'm a big believer in that the first person that touches the baby as they emerge should be the mother.
Right.
And if not the mother, the father. So, I'm always saying to the mum when the heads emerge to reach down and feel the baby's head.
Good, cool.
Touching, because twofold, it actually helps to imprint the baby, but also it helps the mum to realise that, it's silly to say this, but to realise there actually is a baby there, because even though there is, something drops in when you touch the baby's head and you think, oh my God,
this is very real.
There really is a baby there.
That's cool. If anyone's got any questions, by the way, I see the little signs come up on the screen telling me people are making comments on other destinations we can't see, which is a bit of a shame, but there we go. So if you are on a destination that you can get your comment through, we'd really love that. If you've got comments or questions, go for your life.
Exactly.
We've got someone here who's a wealth of information. How long have you been in the midwife world?
Oh, just a small 37 years.
Okay, so started when she was 2. Look at that. Doing well. I mean, that's a long time to be, and you've been so entrenched in it. It's so much of, I was about to say part of your life. It's not part of life. It's really very much your life. It's
live and breathe it really.
Yeah.
And I had 4 of my own children as well and had beautiful births with them. And it was actually those experiences that sort of made me really passionate about, helping other women to have beautiful births and to create this sacred or bring back the sacredness of birth because, it is sacred work, bringing in new life, and we need to leave it undisturbed as much as possible so that the mother and baby, can have that time, and the partner, to actually as a family connect
the bonding,
bond. Incredible, because it sets the baby up for life as well, because it imprints all that, love, the love hormones. It activates all the endorphins and the oxytocins as well that you need to actually make, help the baby to know that it's loved and cared for. So
it's
going forward, going forward in life, it grows up as a much more balanced human.
Well, I was having conversation. I don't want to go into detail because it's people's private business, but I was having conversations with a couple of people lately, and they were talking about having estranged relationships with their fathers and their mothers and parents, full stop. But it and a lack of bonding, and I think to myself, especially when we talk about these things, I think, wow, like you could have just started on you could have started on the front foot, and like I can see how it's affected these people's lives for their entire life.
Exactly.
So it's just, if you've got this incredible opportunity, you're bringing new life into the world, why not embrace it as much as you possibly can?
Yeah, for sure. And that I'm a big proponent too of prenatal. So,
Yes.
In the womb, because a lot of the blueprint is laid down in the womb. So right from conception or even preconception, actually creating that, blueprint for life. But then at birth, that's the next step, as the baby emerges into the world, is such a sacred opportunity to actually give them the best start in life.
Agreed.
So if we can actually protect that space, and create a beautiful birth experience so that the baby can actually come into a space of love, not into fear and trauma. So that's the big thing.
And all of us in life, just think about how much better life would be if you came into the world in a space of love, right? Like it's just
big difference.
Big difference, not this rush. And we see so many people I don't know, feeling very disattached, all of that. again, if we could get back to the fundamentals of family, it's worked for a very long time, right?
Oh, yes.
And our society's not going through the best sort of run these days, and that has been lost to such a huge extent. So at the time of conception or birth, you know what, like bond up.
Yeah,
Bond
exactly.
up. Take this as the incredible opportunity it is. And also, obviously, you want to bond with your baby, but bond with the person you love as well. Like,
exactly. Because it's a family unit.
Of course,
you're all together, and you're all partners in this whole process.
So I see it. That's exactly right.
Exactly. So what can the viewers do there? If you're expecting a baby and you want to create a beautiful, space for birth. What are the things that you can do? Because there's plenty that you can do, and it's being aware of it is the first part.
Faye, what can I do? What can I do?
What can you do? I don't know.
It's a bit late for me. Yeah.
It is. However, the big thing comes from education and awareness, because if you don't know, you don't know.
That's
right. Most people that just go through the system may or may not be told about all of this, the importance of this hour after birth, and the importance of physiological third stage, which is the delayed cord clamping. That is so important.
Well, those two things I wasn't told about at all. No. And I did the antenatal stuff. I did the prep, right? I wanted to get into this and do it to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
But I was naive. I was young. I was 22 years old at the time. So when you go and do these things, you judge on what you're told by the people in front of you, and those people were the medical staff at the hospital, and I just believed them. And I'm not having to go at people that work at the hospital by any stretch, right? I mean, they're wonderful, wonderful people, but they're in a system, right? And they promote that particular system, and not all of this other stuff, which is very, very, very important and very positive. Why not grab hold of it?
Exactly. And the thing is that, the majority of people are birthing in the hospital system. So how can we create a sacred space in the birth system so that we can have the birth that we want, and we can create that bond of love, right from birth, because that is the reality. Because, yes, we can go and have a home birth, which is the ultimate, because you can create the beautiful sacred space at home, have continuity of care, have everybody on the same page that's going to hold space for you. So that's the ultimate if you want a beautiful sacred birth that's undisturbed, but from there then you've got birthing centres that also have the same philosophy normally, but then if you're in the hospital system, then you can actually change the space that you're creating for birth. So I talk about this a lot too with feng shui for birth. Right.
Well, you also talk about the paradigm of this entire situation, right? And for me, this is a big thing, because for me, like, I always thought, certainly when I had all my kids, my thought was home birth is for, risky hippies. Okay. I just thought, no, like that, you're taking risk with your children's lives. But I had been so indoctrinated by the whole thought that, the birth is a risky thing, effectively, and if you care about your wife and you care about your child, you put them in the safest possible place. Well, I get that if things go wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
But
there's always a risk with everything.
There's
a risk with breathing these days.
Every time you cross the street, you're taking a risk, right?
Exactly. So it's balancing those up and saying, and coming back to, like, what do you want? What is most important for you? And knowing that, yes, there are always risks associated with anything. As long as your pregnancy is going smoothly and there's no actual, high risk to it, then you should be fine to birth anywhere you choose. So whether it's at home or in the hospital. And then, when you're at home, if you've got a home birth midwife who's trained in natural birth, and if there's anything at all that comes up that doesn't feel right, then they will say we need to transfer into the hospital, and they'll come along usually as your support person. Some of the home birth midwives have visiting rights in the hospital, so they can actually still be your midwife.
So you still got the expertise. This is the thing. And if things do sort of change and you do feel that you need the extra support, a good midwife is going to go, hey, let's guess what? Let's jump in the car, let's get going.
Exactly.
Right? Or whatever.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then, and even then, if you transfer, as long as it's not an urgent, like emergency, you've got time to actually create your space again, because quite often if that happens and you have to transfer, then it's usually a bit of an adrenaline kick as well. So we've talked about this before too.
Yeah, which is something I never even considered before. You brought it up.
So when adrenaline kicks in, then everything shuts down. So you'll either have the baby really quickly because the fetal ejection reflex, or you'll either, if you're close to birthing, the baby might come out super quick, like you did.
4 minutes.
4 minutes after your mum arrived at the hospital, or everything shuts down. And you see this time and time again when women come into the hospital to birth, that they were in fully established labour, and when they get in there, everything just stops because it's a safety thing. So they don't feel safe. So until they find their space and create this beautiful sacred space to birth in, and then things start up again.
Yep.
So it's important to create this beautiful space where you feel safe, and this then goes into the hour after birth. If you've got this beautiful space that you've created,
Yep.
so dimming the lights and having a bit of music playing, or all your bits,
all
and
these
pieces.
things that I wasn't told. I wasn't
No.
told about the dimming the lights. I wasn't told about the music, and that would have made such the atmosphere is hugely important.
Oh
right?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It makes it so clinical if it's all fluoros and
terrible. So all you
kind
have
of
to do is
white
dim
noise.
the lights. All labour wards usually have dimmers on the light switches. Yeah, so you can dim the lights. Yeah. And also just creating, pushing. Most hospitals now too have curtains that cover all the emergency equipment, so you don't need to pull it out and use it.
I was actually impressed with that. I mean, it's a long time ago again for me, but the fact that all the equipment was hidden behind cupboards. So you went in there and it looked like, looks like a 4-star kind of hotel room. That's what it looks like. And then everything goes boom, 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 opens up like, I don't know, like Lego. And away you go.
Exactly. Yeah. And we have talked about, changing the room around.
Yeah.
Mattress on the floor. That's all to create your sacred space. But when it comes to the hour after birth too, the thing is that even if an emergency happens, so say if the baby has meconium and it needs to be
what's that?
So that's when the baby's done a poo inside the uterus, or it could be a stress response, and they've done a fresh one, which is what you're more worried about, because if they inhale, it's called meconium. It's the baby's first poo, and it's that thick black tarry stuff.
Oh, okay. I know the stuff. I didn't know what it was called. Okay.
Yeah, so when the baby first does a poo, it's a bit like a tube of toothpaste, but it's all black tarry. It's meconium.
Right.
Yeah, it's all quite sterile and everything, but you don't want them to inhale it, so because it can get into their lungs and then cause all kinds of problems.
Okay. So how would they inhale it?
Because as they come out and their lungs expand and they take a gasp.
Of course, yeah.
So you don't want meconium around their mouth and stuff. So the thing is that whenever a baby, so any issues like that, meconium or any other things that might need suction or a bit of resuscitation, then they quite often clamp and cut the cord and take the baby over to a resus cot and do what they need to do. But then they're separating the baby from the mother.
Yeah. Yep.
So why not?
That time.
Yeah. You can leave the cord attached, and you can actually do the resuscitation if needed with the baby on the mother's chest.
Okay.
So, they can stay attached. So they're still getting all the oxygen and nutrients through their cord. You're not depriving them of that. And they can have the suction at the bedside. They can bring the trolley over, do the suction, any oxygen, anything that's required while the cord's still pulsating. Okay. Because remember, the baby hasn't transitioned fully to physical life until that stops pulsating. So if you're clamping and cutting it before it's finished, then you're depriving them of all the nutrients. But this is also because in the hospital they will give the injection unless you've said you don't want the injection. It's the oxytocic injection that's going to speed up the placenta being born.
And can I ask this question?
Yes.
If you actually state you don't want that injection, do they try and sort of coerce you? Do they kind of push it on you a bit?
Depends, but I mean, you can say no. Like you have to consent to it anyway, because it's a medical procedure. So you have to say, and this is why I'm an advocate of birth plans too, so that you can say specifically, I do not want my syntocin injection, and I do not want my cord clamped and cut before it stops pulsating. Okay,
I make mention of this because the fact is that I've had this experience myself, not with childbirth, with other stuff, but with hospitals just doing as they want and not actually asking consent, right? Yeah. And I've actually said to a hospital only about a year ago, I actually told them, no, I didn't want a particular procedure, and they did it anyway, right?
Yeah.
Now, I mean, that's just wrong at so many different levels, but it worries me worries probably the wrong word, but there's a level of concern, I guess, that might be happening in the birth process.
Yeah, which is why I'm an advocate also for having a really good support person with you, somebody who knows what your birth plan is and what you really desperately don't want to happen, and then they speak up for you.
Love it. With the birth plan. So, you write this all down, or kind of carry on. Is there a form? I don't know.
No, you can write your own, and I sort of say just stick to one page, because I know that the staff in the hospitals get a bit overwhelmed if you come in with this 6-page document and then they'll
here's
go,
the yellow pages.
Not going to happen.
No.
But if you can do, a nice summary on a 1-page thing that you can put up on the wall, that's the best thing, because if it's just handed to them and put in their notes, which is good to have a copy for them to put in the notes, so they've got it there on the desk, but also I would say to put one on the wall because then you
Right.
can see it, and anybody coming in,
They
you
can
can
see it.
direct them to that on the wall.
Oh, I like
And
that.
it's also there to remind you and to remind the support person,
Yep.
what you want, because otherwise, you can get, as you get into transition
Yeah,
stage,
and
you can
emotions.
forget, or you don't care about it, but you will later.
You will.
So,
No, I think it's a great idea. Put it on the
Yeah.
wall. So basically enough, like maybe dot points, right?
yeah,
Keep it
exactly.
nice, clean, and precise.
Mhm.
You don't want to become a Karen, right? And have, as I say, this,
Too
massive.
many,
Yeah,
depends
yeah.
on, just a few dot points of things that are super, super important to you.
Yep.
And this is one that I'm very adamant about, because of the cord blood,
Yep.
and when the baby is ready to detach, it will. So don't give the oxytocic injection unless there's a medical reason, like if you are hemorrhaging and they have
Yep.
to give it to you. But that's very rare because, as I said, it's not going to happen until the placenta starts to separate anyway. And that's not going to happen usually until the cord stops pulsating.
Okay. Bit of controversy here.
Always.
Always. Why not throw some in? Would sometimes the hurry, right, to clamp the cord, or maybe has it got anything to do with in the hospital system, the fact that they sell the cords,
I hope not.
I
because
really
that
hope
shouldn't
not.
happen. But I don't know about that happening, but I know that could happen, but
Yep.
hopefully not. So
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm caught between two worlds here because
Yeah.
I've got someone in my life who desperately needs that kind of technology, right? So as far as the science that is from stem cells and
which I'm glad you bring that up, because that's something I really want to talk about.
That's it. Let's go.
Because there is this big move to, have stem cell, so cord stem cells.
Yep.
And so the couple has to organise that privately themselves through a company that does it, and
Okay.
they have to be called to come in to collect it.
Right.
But my problem with that is that in order to do that, you have to actually clamp and cut the cord so that cord's full of blood. And so because they need to get, all the blood from it.
That was kind of my
stem
point.
cells.
Yeah.
So to do that, you can't have a physiological third stage. And what you're doing, you're taking the stem cells to bank just in case your baby later in life needs those cells, if they get leukemia or cancer or something,
Right.
or to give to the family or whatever.
Yeah.
My argument is, why are you stealing it from the baby now? Because the baby needs those stem cells now. And it's been scientifically proven too that, again, the baby gets this injection of all the blood they need and all the stem cells that are actually building up its own immunity, and so that it doesn't actually develop those illnesses and diseases. So
nature provides, right?
It does,
yeah.
Totally. So if you take it away from the baby now, it's more prone to getting those things later in life and to need it. So why take it now when it needs it now?
Could they, again, I don't know what I'm talking about, so work with me on this one, but okay, couldn't they just save the placenta?
Because you can get stem cells from so many other places. Yeah, you can. There are some in the placenta. It's probably not as easy to access. I don't know, but you could. But again, I feel the placenta is a sacred.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, if you're down, you're sort of so far down there. And see, as I say, I've got a moral thing here, because someone I love very, very, very much needs stem cell research, right? Apparently.
Yeah, exactly. But you can get stem cells from so many other parts of the body, so that aren't going to interfere with the baby's stem cells. So please leave the babies alone, please.
No, I'm with you on that. That makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Right. You come with the full, you come with the kit to get you into the world, right?
Exactly.
Everything's there, exactly right. And obviously it's there for a reason.
Exactly.
Okay. Nature didn't just, fall upon this. So and
it's even got its built-in life support system here.
Yep.
When we clamp and cut this and take it away, then the baby might need resus, because it's hasn't got enough oxygen because you've taken it away, because the thing is, when you give that injection, you do have to clamp and cut the cord, because otherwise the uterus is going to contract really strongly, and it's going to squeeze a whole lot of blood into the baby. And if you don't clamp and cut before then, it's going to get this big injection of blood, and then they end up with jaundice and needing phototherapy. There's all this other stuff that you get, side effects as a result of doing that. But if you don't do that, then again, it's just getting the blood that it needs at the right rate. So it gets all the extra blood, but it's how it's meant to get it.
All of these things, I feel like going down the barrel of the camera here. Get a good midwife. My word.
Or learn, do the education and learn.
Absolutely. I mean, education's key, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. And know that you can say no as well. That's a big word to learn if you're going into the system and you want to, have all these different choices. Learn to say no. I do not want that.
Oh, I don't know. Then you might not end up pregnant in the first place. I don't know.
Really?
I'm teasing. Hello. No, I think this is so valid, right? Yeah. Learn. I mean, the power, it's an incredibly powerful and important word, right?
It
no,
is.
it's 2 letters. And we don't say it enough in life. We tend to get
Exactly.
pushed around by systems and people, and all got to carry on.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think there's so much value in it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's being armed with the knowledge and doing all your background research so that if you come up against a roadblock with a care provider who doesn't agree with it or doesn't
Mhm.
believe in it,
Yep.
then you can show them all the scientific evidence where there's plenty of to prove that this is an advantage to the child to leave it
Sure.
all intact. Unless there is a true medical emergency that you have to get things happening, much quicker.
Yeah.
But that's very, very rare. And
Yeah.
even if you have a cesarean, you can have a cesarean where you can ask for delayed cord clamping. I've seen it.
Really?
I've stood up for
Okay.
a woman wanting that, who actually wanted a lotus birth in theatre, which
Okay.
was the next level again,
Yep.
but had to be constantly at them, reminding them, no, because she wouldn't sign the consent for a cesarean unless they agreed to that. And it was a real stalemate for ages.
Bit of standoff, really.
It was,
Yeah.
but she was strong, and we advocated for her,
Yep.
and she got what she wanted, and the baby was fine, and it's just all these things that yes, you might have a battle which you shouldn't have to have when you're at that vulnerable stage of life.
No, it's your child
It
and your
is.
life. This should be your decision.
It
Like, people
is.
shouldn't be forced. I'm all up for them giving you advice. I get that. But yeah, to force people into a medical procedure they don't want, I know how we feel about that, right?
Exactly. And even with a cesarean, you can ask to have the baby put skin to skin as well. They can lower the drapes,
Okay.
pass the baby straight to the mum when she's on the table,
Yep.
and have skin to skin.
Can
And
you
have that
really? There you
bonding
go.
in theatre. So don't ever think that cesarean is going to stop you from having that one-to-one beautiful time and then being able
Wow.
to go into the recovery with your baby on your chest, because
Yep.
it's important for breastfeeding and bonding.
Because so often they'll take the baby away.
They will.
They'll
Because
take the baby
they
away quite
always,
quickly.
when the baby's first born by cesarean, the clamp and cut the cord.
Yep.
Pediatrician takes it over to the resus cot and checks it all over, does all the bits that it needs to have done, and which is disturbing it, and then drying it all off, drying all the vernix off it and everything, and then wrapping it up in like millions of rugs, and then bring it over to mum so she can only see a tiny little part of its face. So, you want skin to skin so you can bond before they wipe all the vernix off.
Oh, before. Right.
Yeah, well, the vernix is part of it. That was the coating, covered in the vernix is all that white, thick cream, and it was there to protect the baby's skin while it's in utero. It's a bit like, when people swim the English Channel.
Yeah.
They
cover
coat
themselves
with or whatever they put on the
lard and all sorts
But
of weird
anyway,
stuff.
it protects the skin,
Okay.
So that's nature's, covering that protects the baby. And because we can always say when the baby's overcooked is because, if they're actually post dates, post dates, whatever, I think they're born in the exact
When
time
they're
they're
ready.
meant to, but can tell that they're past, when there's no vernix left on them, and they come out a bit more dry and wrinkly, and peeling skin sometimes because there's no more vernix on them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh.
But the vernix is good. It's really good stuff. So
Okay, well, this is maybe why women have babies, not men, because I would be so grossed out by that. I'm not going to lie. I'm just going, again, it's just more goo, right? Like, there's so much goo involved.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
And
a
even
little OCD.
you are.
Yeah, just a little bit.
And the other thing about when they come out, you were saying how they look different, is remember they're a bit blue when they come out. So they're not this beautiful pink, but that's because they're waiting for the oxygenated blood to circulate through once they've taken the breath. So
how long does that take?
Just, a few minutes. They pink up really quickly. Yeah. Once they're very...
So what was the theory really winding the clock back when they used to slap them on the bum?
Oh, just horrible, brutal.
What is it all about?
They did that so the baby would take a big breath, would cry. Cry. So why inflict trauma on the baby right when it's born?
Yeah, that's why I asked.
That's
I mean,
a horrible way to be
strange,
born, isn't it? But that's what they used to do all the time. As soon as the baby came out, hang it by its feet and slap its bum, and it would cry.
Yeah.
So it's hanging there, being held up by somebody they don't know, smacking its bum so that it cries, and it's cold and wet. Poor thing.
If you hung me up upside down, slapped me on the bum, I wouldn't be pleased. No. It wouldn't be a lot of fun.
No,
it's a strange thing, isn't it?
I know. So thankfully that's been outdated now. And
how long ago did they sort of stop that?
Oh, I don't know. I think it was about 50 years ago or something.
Oh, that long ago.
Well, they weren't doing that when I did my midwifery a long time ago. So they're still changing things around, but we don't do that anymore, thank goodness.
Okay, I thought it was a more recent thing, that like about 30 years ago. No,
well, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe. Parts of the world might do, but hopefully not, because it's traumatic, and we want the baby to come into a space of love, not trauma.
Yeah, we don't want the trauma.
There's enough trauma.
On that thought, do you
Oh.
have any last minute thoughts before we close this incredible little episode of Soulbirth?
I just really encourage the viewers, anybody who's listening to this, to actually do your research if you're having a baby, to make sure you find a caregiver, care provider who will actually honour that beautiful sacred space, especially, for the whole process, but especially that hour after birth. It is important. It's the golden hour for a reason, because it's really sacred time that you need to bond with your baby. So please don't let anybody interrupt that golden hour.
I've never heard the term golden hour. I mean, I just thought it was a pretty special time myself. But I think that, look, you give it a title and you realise how important it is. And when you've expressed why. I mean, and that makes a big difference. I mean, for me, it was important because I don't know, it was just an overwhelmingly life-changing experience.
It is,
right?
And you want to hold that, don't you? You don't want to miss out on that.
And there's a lot of things going on. Just embrace it and enjoy every second of it.
And I do want to just say too, for those who might have missed out on that golden hour and they're thinking, oh my God, what have I done? I've ruined my baby's life because I didn't have it. You can always do healing around that anyway, and actually, tune in and fix things that might have, felt out. So
there's always a workaround.
There is always a way to go work through that. So, if you're ever in doubt, just contact me and I can, work with you to actually mend that, help you to heal that.
If we're going to contact you, where do we find you?
Well, my website is soulbirth.com.au.
Easy as that. Thanks very much for being part of, funny enough, Soulbirth.
Yes, thank you. Thanks very